Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. With this administration with Joe Biden as president, I'm beginning to sound and feel like a broken record. I mean, it's just the same thing over and over and over again. At first it was fun, at first it was funny. Of course it wasn't funny that Joe Biden won, but in the end you gotta remain positive, you gotta move forward, we had to cover this guy, and you know what? It was fun, at least for a little bit. Ragging on this old man, seeing the most hilarious gaffes one after another. Now it's getting sad, it's getting pathetic, it's getting disheartening, and most of all, it's having serious real-world repercussions and impacts, and we're stuck here saying the same thing over and over again. And no, not, what did this guy just say? Of course, we're saying that all the time. What I'm referring to is what we're saying, how we're reacting, in the rare moment where Joe Biden is actually able to string a sentence together. And the reaction is usually, that is either the most dishonest thing I have ever heard in my life, or that is the dumbest thing I have ever heard in my life, or both. In this case, definitely both, as Joe Biden continues to try to escape any accountability whatsoever, continues to kick the can down the road, continues to just truly display his incompetence, his dishonesty. And probably the best part here is that the media is actually calling him out. During the start of the new Democrat messaging plan, blaming everything on Putin, quote, Putin's price hike. Some people in the media were contesting that claim, they were fact-checking him, but as a whole, not really. But after March's inflation numbers, the media is absolutely slamming this guy, and it's about damn time. And as you guys know, when the media actually reports things honestly, it means things aren't looking too good for Sleepy Joe now, are they? It means the establishment is possibly throwing Sleepy Joe under a bus, trying to get rid of the guy. Let me show you guys exactly what's going on here. But of course, before we get into it, make sure to leave a like, a comment, subscribe, share the video as much as possible. We are still shadow banned by the YouTube algorithm, hidden from non-subscribed viewers. And with that out of the way, let's roll the tape. Alright friends, so let's first start off with what Joe Biden and his administration is saying. Here's Joe Biden at one of his most recent events in Iowa, and just listen to this ridiculous remark.
Your family budget, your ability to fill up your tank, none of it should hinge on whether a dictator declares war and commits genocide in half a world away.
Frustrating moments that I have ever experienced listening to this man speak. The guy who has essentially surrendered in the push for American energy independence and has shut down and slowed down domestic energy production is the same guy who's saying your family budget, your ability to fill up your tank, none of it should hinge on whether a dictator declares war or commits genocide a half a world away. You know what, Joe Biden? That sentence is correct. If Donald Trump would have said that, I would have said, yep, that's a strong statement. But if Joe Biden says that, it's a slap in the face, it's a total insult. The guy who failed to put sanctions on Russia before the invasion, Russia inevitably views him as weak, invades Ukraine, then only after the fact, lagging behind, imposes sanctions on Russia which for the most part don't even affect Vladimir Putin but rather affect the citizens of Russia itself, and then as a byproduct, American citizens are now facing higher gas prices and possible food shortages considering Russia is one of the biggest suppliers or producers of potash in the world, a major fertilizer that's used to grow crops. And meanwhile, the same guy who has attacked domestic energy production and made America more reliant on foreign energy than it was prior during Donald Trump's administration, this is the guy who's telling you that your family budget or your ability to fill up your tank, none of it should hinge on whether a dictator declares war or commits genocide a half a world away. What an absolute dog-faced pony soldier. I mean, how can these two things be true? And it's not even just Russia. As one of Biden's key advisors, Jared Bernstein, essentially admits.
But I think if anybody looking at geopolitics right now does not recognize the importance of energy independence and of freeing ourselves from autocratic, vicious plutocrats, then they're not paying attention.
Well, we're talking to Venezuela. Last time I checked, not exactly Pope Francis about getting oil, right? So we're not above talking to guys like that or talking to Iran.
Well, that's true.
Joe Biden has literally created this scenario where your family budget and your ability to fill up your tank is dependent on Venezuela, OPEC, Iran, and Vladimir Putin. Either Joe Biden has a convenient excuse here where he's essentially a dementia patient and just doesn't know what he's talking about, or Joe Biden is the biggest snake in Washington, the biggest liar, a man who straight up just doesn't care and will just say whatever he has to say, regardless of how untrue, regardless of how much of a hypocrite he truly is on the facts, and I am just sick of it. The way this administration just lies. The same comparison I always make, we're always hearing about the 20,000 lies that Donald Trump told. Give me a break. Donald Trump was the most transparent and most truthful president I've ever seen in my lifetime. This guy, on the other hand, is the biggest liar. I mean, I'm starting to think that he has a problem. I mean, he literally cannot tell the truth. He cannot answer honestly. He cannot take responsibility. And he continues to push propaganda in order to save his own behind. It's utterly ridiculous. These people literally think you're stupid. You went through the pandemic, you saw 22 million jobs lost almost instantaneously. As some of the restrictions started to get lifted, life started to go back to normal, of course depending on where you are, but largely it started to get back to normal. People started to go back to work mostly under Donald Trump's administration, and then 6 million more people went back to work during the start of Joe Biden's administration. And Joe Biden tells you that he created 6.5 million jobs. He literally thinks you're stupid. Like, he thinks you can't put two and two together. You can't just see the obvious fact. And he straight up lies to you. And I mean, such a ridiculous, unbelievable lie, and expects you to accept it. After 8 months of surging inflation, with every next month showing greater and greater numbers of inflation, I mean surging, to the highest numbers seen in literally over 4 decades, and some may even argue even worse than the Jimmy Carter era, very conveniently, as Vladimir Putin invades Ukraine, Joe Biden starts to call it Putin's price hike, as if the last 6 to 8 months didn't exist. The last 6 to 8 months where Vladimir Putin, Russia, Ukraine weren't anywhere near the news cycle, nothing was happening. Joe Biden expects you to believe that the reason you're spending more on everything is due to Vladimir Putin's price hike, when he literally just invaded Ukraine, and the actual market impacts of sanctions and the geopolitical tensions haven't even kicked in yet. Liar, liar, pants on fire. I've never seen anything like it. And finally, the media is actually telling the truth, at least to a certain extent, holding him accountable on this very easily debunked narrative.
The White House says those price jumps are happening because of the war and what they call, quote, Putin's price hike. But remember, prices started spiking well before the war in Ukraine began.
You can't really put it all on the war and Putin. I get that we've seen sharp spike in energy and food prices since then, but we're seeing rising prices everywhere, and particularly in housing with rents and shelter in places like apparel that have been rising for the last few months. That's much broader than just what we've seen as a result of the war.
The increase in prices obviously long predates the war. We've been seeing inflation rise for most of the past year. In fact, for the last 6 months, inflation has been above the Fed's average target of 2%. So this is not just about the war.
We should note the White House had kind of been bracing for this report, Dana. They had said that they believed these numbers were going to be extraordinarily elevated, and certainly they are very elevated today. And so that is really going to be a focus of the White House. And I would expect to hear the president say Putin's price hike once or twice during this speech, given that has been the way that they have been talking about this since this invasion started. Of course, gas prices had been going up before this.
When inflation is as high as it is right now, just about at 8%, possibly higher when we see the numbers tomorrow, they just blame the guy in charge, and that's bad news for Biden.
Putin's price hike, I mean, give me a break. And even in a scenario where inflation starts to surge and prices start to surge, markets start to potentially tank, in the aftermath of the Russian invasion of Ukraine, even in that scenario, the man who put into place all of these factors that are going to lead to those surges in prices, at least for Americans, is still Joe Biden. It's still Joe Biden's economic recession that looms. It's still Joe Biden's price hikes and Joe Biden's economy, Joe Biden's inflation, because this right over here,
your family budget, your ability to fill up your tank, none of it should hinge on whether a dictator declares war and commits genocide in half a world away.
Well, Joe Biden, current president of the United States, is the exact man that failed to shield the American people from the current economic impact that we are seeing. Joe Biden is the man that signed on to trillions upon trillions of dollars in spending, fresh out of a total economic shutdown and pandemic market crash. What an absolute disaster this man continues to be. What a liar, what an incompetent. I keep saying it and I will continue to say it because it's true. Joe Biden continues to beat expectations expectations. We all knew he was going to be dishonest. We all knew he was going to bring nothing but failure. But man, is he seriously outdoing himself. The 46th president of the United States, Joe Biden, there are no redeeming qualities. None. Nothing. That's what I got for you though. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to leave a like, a comment, subscribe. Share the video as much as possible. We are still shadow banned by the YouTube algorithm, hidden from non-subscribed viewers. I'm going to get back to work though. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.